In the ancient Mideast, membership in a family, in a clan or a group or whatever was extraordinarily important, and loyalty to that group or family or clan was expected above all else. They really lived by that old saying, blood is thicker than water. Membership was crucial. So in the first reading today, in the book of Numbers, we have a situation in which the Spirit of God that had been poured onto Moses, God wanted to pour onto a number of elders, the 72, so that they, along with Moses, could minister and lead the people. And so they go out to the meeting place, this group, and the Spirit of God comes upon them. And Moses is happy for this because he wants to share the Spirit with these so that he can also share the responsibilities, the onus of leadership. Well, two of the people that were supposed to be there must have gotten a late breakfast. I don't know. But they're still in the camp, Medad and Eldad. But the gift of God's Spirit, it still comes upon them, even though they're not there with the group. And so they complain to Joshua. Joshua complains to Moses. These guys are prophesying, but they're not part of the group here. They didn't come where they were supposed to be. They weren't here. Stop them. Well, Moses will have none of it. And he says, what, do you think I'm jealous? It's great. Would that everybody could have the Spirit of God. But that's how important inclusion in the group was. If you weren't there, if you weren't part of it, sort of like, God help you. So then we come fast forward to the gospel. And once again, John complains to Jesus because there is someone out there casting out demons, but he's not part of their group. And John whines to Jesus and says, tell him to stop. He's not part of our group. He shouldn't be doing this. And Jesus, again, has none of that, saying that, anybody that's for us isn't against us. I mean, just let him be. Let him be if he's doing good things. So Jesus doesn't disagree with the importance of the group or the family or the clan, but he changes the focus. At one point, you might recall, in both the Gospel of Mark and Matthew, there is an occasion when people come up to Jesus and they say, your mother and your brothers and sisters are outside and they want to see you. And Jesus says something that could be taken to be somewhat rude, and he says, well, who are my mother and brothers and sisters? Those who do the will of God are mother and brother and sister to me. In other words, Jesus isn't saying that the group isn't important, that we shouldn't have loyalty to the group, but he's saying the group that is most important isn't, some sodality or some nationality or anything else. It's the family of God. It's membership in his family. And that comes to each of us in baptism. We are part of the family of God. And what Jesus is saying is our loyalty first and foremost has to be to him because of our membership in the family of Jesus. To emphasize how strongly he believes this and wants to teach this, Jesus uses a rather extreme example of figurative speech. So he says, if your hand causes you to sin, to move away from God, cut it off, get rid of it. Your leg, get rid of it. Your eye, pluck it out. Better to enter life maimed and crippled than to enter life whole and not follow through on faithfulness to God. That was figurative speech, otherwise we'd all be limping. I don't know if any of you, I may even have said this example or cited this example once before, but for some years I lived in Omaha, Nebraska when I was on the staff. Well, I graduated from Creighton, but also I was on the staff of our college house of studies for young men preparing for priesthood. Anyway, if you lived anywhere in or around Omaha, excuse me, or Iowa or whatever, you have definitely heard of the Nebraska Furniture Mart, which was started by an immigrant from Belarus called Rose Blumkin. Rose died at the age of 104 in 1998. The thing that always, she was a force to be reckoned with. She sold her Nebraska Furniture Mart after I don't know how many years. She started in 1937, and I mean, it was just a gung-ho thing, and she sold it to Warren Buffett for millions of dollars, and then she wasn't really crazy about the way he was running things, so she started competition across the street. You know, I mean, this woman knew what she wanted. Anyway, I don't know if it was for her 90th birthday or if it was for some anniversary or maybe it was the sale of the store. I don't remember what the occasion was. But the Omaha World Herald sent a reporter to her to interview her on this occasion. And so the young reporter went up into her office to do the interview, and her office had this big wall of glass overlooking part of the showroom with furniture. And the reporter was asking her, you know, like, when you immigrated, did you ever expect this kind of success? You know, where did you get your business acumen? It's softball questions. But every once in a while, the reporter would notice that Mrs. B, which is what she was referred to, would walk up to the window, she'd look down, and she'd go like this. And then she'd come back and talk to him some more. Well, she did this 2-3 times during the interview, and finally the young reporter says to her, Mrs. B, my curiosity's got the best of me. I can't help but ask you, why are you doing a blessing every once in a while? And Mrs. B looked at him, of Jewish faith, and says, blessing? What do I know from blessing? He says, my great-grandson is down there on the sales floor, and he doesn't quite get the knack of making sales. And he'll point to a piece of furniture, and I say, mark it down, move it out. Take a look at your relationship with God. We have all kinds of interests in our lives, and rightfully so. God's given us a beautiful world which we have been trying our best to destroy. But God has given us this incredibly beautiful world, so many gifts. I mean, it would be a crime not to enjoy those gifts. However, if those gifts become more important than God, then we got a problem. Those gifts, the beauty of the world that God has given us, they should lead us to God, not take our complete focus so that we no longer look to God. Is there anything in your life that has come between you and your relationship with Christ, with God? Is there anything that's keeping you from giving yourself completely to Him? I mean, it can be anything. Maybe it's a hobby that so consumed you that that's all you think about. Maybe it's TV, the amount of TV you watch. Or maybe it's the internet. Maybe you make a home on YouTube or on some kind of social media. Maybe it's resentments from the past, regrets. Maybe it's looking back and saying, oh, if only. It can be anything. It can be physical things. It can be something in our head. if anything comes between us and God, that family is so important and loyalty is so important that we can't let anything come between us. If there's something in your life that's blocking your complete commitment to Christ, then I would simply refer you to Mrs. B. Move it down. Mark it down. Nothing like blowing the key line. Mark it down and move it out.